Hi, and welcome to the Unashamedly Human podcast, a podcast created to help you get out of your head and into your life. That is, if you want to have more fun, freedom, happiness, peace of mind, and success whilst squeezing the juice out of every area of your life. Join Jackie Ford every Thursday and listen in to her warm Scottish tones, wise heart, and wonderful sense of humour as she interviews guests and discusses what it means to be unashamedly human.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the Unashamedly Human podcast. My name is Jackie Ford. I am a coach, mentor and trainer living in Scotland but working globally. Now, today I've got another special edition for you relating to a subject that is becoming more and more apparent in the news, and I've brought on a really special guest today, a woman I admire greatly who has a story that you just honestly, you just wouldn't believe this woman's story, and when you see her now, you would just be like, how the hell did she do that? What actually happened here? So my special guest today is a lady called Adey-Jones. Many of you might know Del from her own successful podcast called Insightful Conversations with Adey-Jones. Del is Welsh, so she's a Celtic cousin, and she resides in Los Angeles, where she is a coach and a mentor for others. She's talking about a particular topic that I'm actually going to ask you, Del, to talk about in a wee minute, because I think it's important that it comes from you. But first of all, Del, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I love our conversation, so thank you.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you for having me. I know we've been talking about this for quite a while, but I think it's really timely. Like you said, I specialize in working with people. I work with a lot of different people, but it feels like my whole practice right now is around a subject that is very close to my heart, as you mentioned, my story, and that is codependency. And also, you know, if you find yourself in a narcissistically abusive relationship. So do you want me to give you a little bit of my history?
Oh, please, Del. I think, and, again, I'm going to say to you, Del's going to go into the content of her story, and it's lovely for the listeners to hear the content of that story. And I also think it's important as coaches that we listen to other people's stories, the content of their stories, and we don't dismiss them. So yeah, Del, please.
Oh, that's wonderful. I totally agree. I love hearing. I think that's how we connect with each other, is when we tell our stories.
Yeah.
As long as we know their stories. So anyway, so my story goes back. I'm 61 now. So I basically spent about 30 years in therapy trying to fix myself. I was diagnosed as codependent and suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. And it was when I came across the principles that I can honestly say that I went from sort of barely functioning at all when I first went into therapy to functioning pretty well, to then functioning incredibly well. So I'll go back a bit and give you a little background as to what led to my my issues with codependency and post-traumatic stress. So, as you said, I grew up in North Wales. I am one of 7 children. I'm number 5, and I was actually the product of an affair that my mother had with my father. They had an 8-year affair, and they had 3 children, which is the sister that's just above me and the brother that's just below me. And I know it sounds funny to say, but I never met my father. And the reason for that was that my mother, having to raise children alone without a father, needed to make money. So she converted our little Welsh cottage into a home for mentally ill people. And we all slept in separate caravans in the backyard. This is in the middle of the countryside, so it wasn't in the city. And so my father would visit once a week and be with my mother in her caravan. And it was late at night, we were already asleep. And so we never ever got to see him. And when I was about 4 years old, I knew I missed him. I knew about this sort of character that was sort of elusive, and I missed the thought of not seeing him or meeting him, but I didn't really realize how unusual our upbringing was until I went to the local primary school when I was about 5. But prior to that, a year before that, when my mother was pregnant with my younger brother, my father's wife paid us a visit. And she was, understandably incredibly upset and distressed. And I remember being home alone with my mother at that time. And I remember thinking, oh my God, what have we done to hurt this woman? It was so clear that, I wasn't making sense of the words back then, but I could just tell from the energy that she was really distressed and we were to blame. So I think it was in that moment that I remember feeling, oh my God, I should never have been born. Me just even existing has apparently really upset this woman.
Yes.
So, but when I went to the primary school at 5, I realized that everybody knew our situation. The teachers, the people in the village. I have a thing about those twitching lace curtains. I always felt like looked at and judged. And it was true. I mean, we were called terrible names by the children and the teachers even. So again, at that time, I just felt incredible amounts of shame and feeling responsible for hurting other people. And at the same time too, I would pass my father on the way to this little village school. We'd get the bus and we would pass, he had a garage, I'd pass him, and he never ever looked at me or paid attention to, and my sister never paid attention to us, would literally avert his gaze. And I kept thinking, oh my God, I'm not good enough. If I was good enough, he would want to, claim me as his daughter and whatever. So I had a whole list of what I wasn't good enough at. I wasn't pretty enough, clever enough, I don't know, talented enough, skinny enough. I mean, the every enoughs that you can think of that I wasn't. And I think that's just a natural defense that children have. They feel that if they're to blame, then they can fix the situation. They just need to work on themselves. They just need to change something about themselves. And then there's the possibility of a positive outcome. And so that, I think, sets you up for that pattern. So what I realize now is, as I said, fast forward, we moved from our tiny little home into a giant, great, rambling old stately home mansion. And my mother filled it with about 55 plus mentally ill people and mentally handicapped. And she had a funny sort of way of, she would say, they're all our family, they're all our extended family. And so therefore we were all dotted around the mansion. There was no sort of nuclear family unit. I just lived on one wing of the house with all these mentally ill people around me, and we didn't have locks on our doors. And so you can imagine there was a lot of craziness. Yeah. So I grew up hypervigilant, which again is a sign of codependency. So the signs are sort of lack of self-worth, hypervigilant, feeling responsible for other people's feelings, a few of those things. So by the time basically I was 19, I was not functioning very well in life. I was attracted to unavailable narcissistic men, repeating the pattern of my childhood. And I just hit a point where I thought, God, this is just too hard. I'm not equipped to deal with this world. But again, it was something wrong with me. Not that the world was bad. It was something lacking in me that I couldn't handle it. So then I found myself in California, coming on holiday, and literally never went back. And California in the 80s was all about sort of workshops and self-improvement. And I jumped on that bandwagon very quickly. My first workshop was Healing the Shame That Binds. I was like, that one speaks to me. And by the time I was 29, I got into therapy and realized that a lot of the chaos I was living in was due to my thinking, but they didn't explain it that way. So it was really, as I said, I was diagnosed as codependent. Often people that grow up in dysfunctional, abusive families where there's abandonment or any type of sexual abuse, which also happened, can lead to this, basically a defense mechanism, a coping mechanism. So that's pretty much my story. As I said, 30 years of therapy helped me understand, but I couldn't find the freedom from it. I was still acting out in codependent ways. And it was the principles that totally, absolutely opened up a whole new world to me. So I'm incredibly grateful to that.
Okay, God, we all are, Dale, you know, and in particular, what I love about your story is that you knew there was another way. And so you kept searching and searching. You knew that the reality you were living in wasn't the reality that you knew you were meant to be living in. And I just think that that's phenomenal, sort of to keep looking, to keep looking, to keep looking. And a lot of people do that, but we don't give ourselves credit for that, because that's wisdom, constantly, you know, making you go forward. And there's something I want to say, Dale. You fought against talking about this for a long time in this community.
Yeah, about codependency, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Not my, I share my story, but I had these. To go back a little bit, after my 30 years of therapy, my first therapist died. He was an incredible man. He was a father figure to me. And then the second therapist I had was like a big brother to me. He was just a little bit older than me. Oh my God, he was so amazing. His name was Alan Luddington, if he ever hears this. What happened was he used to say to me, "Oh my God, you're an expert in codependency and narcissistic abuse, or understanding it, or understanding narcissism." And he would actually encourage me to work with other people that were suffering from this. And so I started, when I was a coach, prior to the principles, I would work with people around this issue. And when I first came across the principles, I had this misunderstanding, because I'd heard the term, you know, there's no personality disorder, there's no diagnosis. And so I thought, oh gosh, I can't talk about this anymore. So, and it was a misunderstanding. And actually, I think you had a pivotal role in getting me back into speaking about this. I think you recommended me to another 3 principles practitioner who was struggling in her relationship. Couldn't quite, wasn't sure if she was in a narcissistic relationship or not, which is a classic sign of codependency.
I knew she was. I just thought, speak to Dell.
Yes. So we had an amazing call, just a couple of calls. She had these like light bulb moments of, oh my God, you know. And so I was like, wait a minute. I mean, this is somebody, again, in our 3 principles community that gained incredible, you know, sort of insight just from a couple of conversations about this subject. And I thought, how many other people out there could I help? Absolutely. And share this with? And it seems like since then, it's just the floodgates have opened. I mean, I'm getting people coming to me for this issue. And part of being in a narcissistically abusive relationship is you feel like you're going crazy. So as much as we have this understanding, you know, you feel like you're going crazy, and it's such a fine line between going, it's just my thinking, but this feels abusive.
Yeah.
And because it's not physical abuse, because we don't have the bruises and the black eyes and whatever to say this is abuse, it's more subtle. It's a subtle type of abuse. It's emotional abuse and psychological abuse. So we can doubt it, and we can go to this sort of, it's just my thinking, I'm taking it personally, I don't need to, and then we tolerate situations that are actually, you know, not in alignment with how we want to live.
Oh, Dell, I want you to speak more about that. What I've seen over the years, Dell, is that you often get a situation where someone who is, you know, and we're using labels here, okay? Yeah. We're pointing to behaviours which are a result of thought and action, okay? Just putting that out there. But I've found over the years that many of the women that I've worked with who are in that kind of situation, they're very empathic, they're very loving. And it seems to me, and you can correct this, but what I've seen is you tend to find that narcissists love empathic people they can feed off of and do
Yeah, well, 100%. And I mean, they say the perfect sort of match is, and again, I'll say the same thing. We're talking about behavior, so I'm not going to keep saying narcissistic behavior. We'll just say the narcissist and the codependent, but we understand it's pointing to a behavior in time. It's not an indictment of who the person is, just how they're behaving in the moment. So yes, absolutely. You know, a narcissist is somebody that is very self-obsessed, lacks empathy. It's all about them. They need constant adoration and attention. They see themselves as superior, and sort of the rules don't apply to them. They need this. They call it narcissistic feed. They need constantly to be feeding, and it's an unhealthy. You know, I mean, again, it's a label, but I'm going to use it for right now. But there's thinking from the narcissist that is actually it's painful. It doesn't lead to having, you know, healthy, loving, reciprocal relationships. It's based out of fear of not. It's fear of being seen for who they really are inside, which they believe is damaged, which is not true. We all know that we're totally healthy and whole on the inside, but they sometimes have this very deep sense that there's something terribly wrong with them. So they have built up this front, this, you know, I'm better, I'm superior, I'm above the law, I'm whatever. And then on the other hand, so that's an unhealthy behavior, okay? And then on the other hand, the codependent, or the empath, however you want to look at it, has crossed the line into unhealthy thinking as well. So it's not just that they're loving and giving. They have weak boundaries, and they tend to focus on other people more than themselves. They become needless and wantless. They give to receive security. So they give more than they're comfortable giving, but they think it's going to buy them security of the relationship. If I'm needed, then I'm safe. You know, they'll keep me around. So it's basically two unhealthy people or unhealthy thinking coming together. And it is the perfect fit. If you look at it, it's like the narcissist wants attention, me. And you've got the codependent who's like all about giving. I'm needless and wantless. I can keep giving to you. So it is the perfect hookup. You know, that's what happens. But then there's the fallout from that. Often the narcissist needs to have a partner that they think is equally superior and successful and all of this stuff. And in the beginning of the relationship, they don't see you as, they just think, oh, I'm getting all my needs met. But they projected on you that you're on this pedestal and you're equal to them, you're equally special. But then when they see that you actually have low self-esteem, they become they hate that. And they will pull you off that pedestal, and they'll start to sort of emotionally and psychologically beat you up for not being the perfect partner, the perfect mirror to their perfection. So there's this, so you've been put on a pedestal, which is very seductive for a codependent. All of a sudden they're being loved and admired and seen and heard, so they feel. But then they get pulled off that pedestal and they're devastated. And unfortunately, and then a narcissist rather will keep repeating that pattern. When they see that you're really broken, then they might lose you. They put you back on the pedestal to only tear you off again. And that's that reinforcement, that intermittent reinforcement of I love you, I hate you, I love you, I hate you. And that's where the crazy making comes in, you know, with the codependent. They just feel like, well, you know, what's happening? So that's just part of that dynamic.
So they're both seeing each other through a filter of thought.
Yeah, 100%.
And the stories that they have about one another.
Mm-hmm.
Del, given what's happening in the world right now, you know, lots of countries are in lockdown, people are self-isolating, or, you know, there's physical distancing or social distancing, whatever you want to call it. There's the potential for domestic abuse to be increased, and it is actually happening all over the world.
Yeah.
Now, you just said earlier on that abuse isn't always physical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It can be emotional as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I wondered if you could talk to that, just in case there's anybody listening who is maybe hearing something about, oh, I feel like that with my partner, and I feel as though I'm going a bit crazy, and he kind of gaslights me. So I just know there's something you can say here, Dale, to help people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, I have clients right now that obviously are going through that, and it really, you know, I know that you can't, you know, because you can't physically distance yourself from that situation, but you can actually find a space within, a
Mm-hmm.
space of quiet within. And, you know, we don't normally sort of give advice, but in this situation I'm going to, because, you know, I think that we're in unusual times. But if your partner is, you know, sort of either, as you said, gaslighting, or you feel like you're on eggshells around them, it really is a time to sort of give each other a wide berth. Or certainly if you're the codependent that's living with a narcissist who's starting to become aggressive and blaming and attacking, it's really about protecting yourself. Don't engage back. Don't defend yourself. Just completely understand that they are in a crazy thought storm of their own right now. It has no bearing on you. It has nothing to do with you. You don't need to defend yourself verbally or fix them from what they're thinking. You just let them have whatever experience they're having, knowing that they do actually have their own innate well-being within them, that they will settle.
Mm-hmm.
The big thing is to not engage, because it becomes, you know, tensions rise, people become reactive, and it's just going to be unbearable. So it's really finding. Sorry, what you
So
say?
no, Dale, I was just
Yeah.
going to say, well, how practical is that? And how can you do that? How can you not engage?
Because you understand that. Well, first of all, if it's verbal, I mean, physical is a different matter, and I can't.
Absolutely. We're not talking to that
Yeah,
today.
we're not talking about physical, but talking about the emotional. When you understand that about separate realities, when you understand that your partner, whatever he's saying in the moment, it's often a man. I hate to be sexist about it, but in this situation, we'll talk about a man. If he's starting to hurl abuse and blame you and accuse you of certain things, it's, you know, to basically, whether you say, you know, I understand how you feel, or whatever you need to do to just not ramp up the tensions and the aggression. Know inside that it doesn't matter what they say, it has no bearing on you. That you know, that you are not all the things you've been accused of doing or being or saying the wrong way, or whatever it is. Just to know that maybe it's going to go and take a bath or a shower, or have a little place in the bedroom where you have a little sort of altar and you just feel like you can recenter yourself.
Yeah.
But it's really about not taking things personally. I used to take everything personally. I used to think everything that my, you know, I'll lump it all together, because I've been in and out of a few narcissistic relationships. I'm not talking about one specific, but if a partner used to say something about me, I used to believe it. I used to take it personally. Now I know that, well, number one, thank God I'm not in a narcissistic relationship. I'm in a wonderful, healthy relationship. But now I look back at some of the things that were said to me, and I think, oh my God, they were just believing their thinking in the moment. It really had no bearing on me.
Mm.
The other thing is, I want to use a little example. You know, like if you're walking down a road, and off on some side street, you hear some crazy person hurling abuse and screaming and calling you a bitch, whatever it is. You don't go down that road and go up to this crazy person and say, you know, how dare you? How dare you call me these names? You just think, there's a crazy person down that road. I'm going to keep walking in the direction I was going. And it's the same thing. And I know people in a relationship feel like, but we're close and I want that loving relationship back. I want that connection. When somebody is acting like a crazy person, don't try and connect with them. Don't inflame them by arguing with them. But at the same time, you can simply say, I understand how you feel. That's a neutral Because when we have this understanding and we understand separate realities, we do understand how they can feel the way they feel, because we know they're feeling their thinking. So it's not validating what they're saying, but it's not inflaming it or engaging in it. It's called a narcissistic dance when you start defending yourself, because as soon as you defend yourself with a narcissist, they've got you, and they will spin you around. And it's the same with I've completely lost my train of thought. I was going to say something else, but it'll come back to me. So yeah.
Yeah, I often say, Dale, that's like it's like a fire. When you want a fire to get bigger, you put logs on it, you put coal on it, you put gasoline on it, whatever you want to do to make a fire really go. But when you want a fire to go out, you don't feed it, you don't give it anything, you leave it to settle. And what you're saying is, I mean, even in a sort of our normal, relationships where we're not putting, a label of behavior on it. I find even with my daughters or with my husband, there comes a tension point. There's a point where there's tension, and it's better to walk away than attack or fight or try to be right or try to get the other person to hear you. Because I always think of what Bill Pettit says, sort of two people in a low state of mind, nobody hears anything.
Absolutely.
If that's the case and you're the person in the lower state of mind, it's like keep your hands in your pockets and keep your mouth shut. Because nobody's going to win.
Yeah, the other thing that I've remembered what I was going to point to is that, part of the, dysfunctional thinking in a narcissist is that they very easily wounded. So when we call it pantsing a narcissist, which is basically like exposing them, that is like poking the tiger. So this is not the time to point out to your partner how whatever you think of them. Just don't. You will get such rage coming back at you. So you're entitled to have your feelings. You're entitled to your separate reality. But just know that there are certain things that, as you say, will stoke the fire and make the situation worse. So it's about maintaining healthy boundaries. You don't have to sit there and take abuse. You can, like I said, find a bathroom, have a bath, whatever it is, or a shower, just or a quiet moment in your bedroom, and just nurture yourself, reconnect with who we know we are at our essence, which is, perfectly healthy, whole, loving, peaceful, and that any of that noise coming from the outside is just noise. It's just noise. A distressed person in noise, but again, like I said, just allow them to settle themselves without you trying to fix them or inflaming the situation.
Yeah. It's like we said, the situation we're in isn't normal. So people are trying to navigate this not normal state, and there may be money troubles, there may be, all sorts of other issues that people are going through. So that temper may flare more often than it has, or has for a while, or it might be a new thing for people, finding that their partner is in this lowered state of mind, has anxious thinking about whatever is going on, and doesn't have the maturity or the understanding to know that they're just in a thought storm and that will pass, and then they'll have some kind of clarity. Often what you find, and I'm sure you'll validate this, is a lot of people, when they feel like that, they're looking to self-soothe, they're looking for a different feeling, and a narcissist, to get that different feeling, will attack someone else verbally.
Yeah, totally. It's again, exactly like you said, it can be projecting out onto the other person, all their rage and upset and hurt feelings, angst, and as you said, even in the best of relationships right now, and I have a wonderful relationship, and 3 weeks ago I was a basket case. I was not a nice person to be around for a few hours, but because I had this sort of financial situation that didn't go so well. Many people in the country are going through, but I saw my own anxiety go up, and then it was like that wake up moment of, oh my God, I'm projecting into the future. right now in this moment, I'm perfectly fine and healthy and whole. And, so I just came right back to center and came into that peaceful moment, which is, all we have. But yes, you're right. Heightened emotions, heightened reactivity, feeling trapped, going into the future of, oh my God, how long this is going to happen? How long rather is this going to go on for? I'm trapped in this house with this person that I feel is my abuser. Again, just, it's that back to center, back to right now, where we're one foot in front of the other. Take care of yourself, nurture yourself, do whatever you have to do to sort of bring yourself back into that, as you said, that higher state of well-being. Mm-hmm. And again, if you don't force it, it will naturally happen. You will bounce back there when you trust that, everything, that we have resilience. And when you sort of get out of that reactive thought storm that you might be in too. So.
You said something earlier, Dale, which I think is incredibly important. And you said that sometimes people can feel as though they're going off their heads. They feel as though they're going a wee bit crazy because what their partner is saying is confusing them. And instead of recognizing that feeling as truth, that their partner is confusing them, what they do is they second guess. Mm-hmm. Can you speak a wee bit more to that? Because we're trying to point people back to, if you're feeling it, it's happening.
No, exactly. Mm. And it's also differentiating how much it really is. It's trusting your feelings, but also knowing, like for myself, I'll just talk about myself.
Sure.
I know that I could, I used to feel incredible amounts of pain. There was a lot of gaslighting going on in my relationships, walking on eggshells, attacks coming out of the blue. I used to feel that I was on this little path of, we're all walking together, happy, holding hands. And all of a sudden there would be like, a metaphysical punch to the side of the head. Mm-hmm. Somewhere I had said something that had triggered, and it would turn on a dime. And all of a sudden there was this unbelievable blow up. And I'd be thinking, what happened? What happened? Yeah. And then it would be, well, you did this and you did this and you said that. And I'd be like, and I felt, I could never trust that this wasn't going to happen again. It happened so repeatedly. It was always like, when's the shoe going to drop? So I was on hypervigilant alert. But I was so insecure that I took on all the stuff that was being said about me, all the things where I was, lacking or everything, all of the stuff. But I just started feeling crazy because something, like I would see something and it was, to me, I'd see a situation. It was very clear what I saw. Mm-hmm. But then the partner would say, no, you never saw that. That didn't happen. I never said that. Mm-hmm. There's something wrong with you. You make stuff up. You're and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, am I crazy? Yeah. Did I? What? And you just end up, because it's so subtle. It is abuse. It's abuse, and you end up doubting yourself. You doubt everything. You doubt what you're feeling, and that doubt can have actually started as far back as childhood. It certainly happened with me. And my mother used to say to me all the time, "Well, your father loves you. He just can't be with you." Now that was crazy making to me, because in my head it was like, well, if you love somebody, aren't you supposed to be with them? Don't you want to be with them? And so it was like, and so many other instances where I'd feel, in danger with the mentally ill people. And my mother would say, no, you're fine. You're fine. Or that didn't happen. Mm. And so I had this lifelong habit of not trusting myself. So it was very easy for me to lose grip on reality, mm-hmm. and not trust my feelings. So, to answer your question, it was, well, hang on a minute, I hope I'm answering your question.
You are.
Oh, good. I'm thinking, am I going off somewhere here? But yeah, just notice if you've had a habit of doubting yourself. And as you said, Jackie, if somebody is clearly, if you set a healthy boundary and somebody keeps pushing on that boundary and moving the line, and you feel unsafe or abused or ignored or whatever those feelings are, trust that. Trust that. There's nothing wrong with you. If you know, if you've set a healthy boundary and it's not being respected, then that's, or if you're with somebody that your needs don't matter, it's all about their needs, and you feel abused and taken advantage of. I mean, we can feed that thinking, we can make it into a bigger thought storm, but just trust, hang on a minute, this feels like it's just going one way. It's all about them, not about each of us. Trust that.
Yeah.
But again, as I have people I'm working with right now that I don't think right now is the time to get into future thinking of, am I in a narcissistic relationship? How do I get out if I am? Take care of yourself right now. We're in unusual times. It's called, a lot of enmeshed relationships, narcissists and codependents become enmeshed. We feel each other very intensely. So what we're looking for is a healthy separation, a healthy, individuation, as they call it. So we're actually sort of taking care of ourselves, we're nurturing ourselves, staying centered, staying healthy, we're not taking anything personally. And then, as this thing moves on, that then is the opportunity to say, what part have I contributed by my codependent behavior? Because really, sometimes just by sort of seeing what you're thinking, how that is, making you behave in certain ways, by taking care of your side of the street and getting healthier yourself by reconnecting with who we are always at our center. So it's not about fixing ourselves. It's just about recognizing unhealthy thinking that is, had you sort of behave in a certain way. And when we recognize that, often that reconnecting to who we are at essence, the strength that comes from that can actually change the dynamic of a relationship. That can happen. They used to say that narcissists can never change, and I always say anybody can change if you want to, and if you're willing to look at thought patterns that might not be healthy or contributing to a healthy relationship. So, again, if you become healthier as a codependent, your partner may become healthier too, and you can have a really great relationship that's reciprocal. But now's not the time to make those determinations, I don't think. It's about self-care, doing what you can to nurture and protect yourself during these challenging times.
Oh, Dale, I love that. I love that.
Good.
I do. I love that. I love how you speak about that, sort of with such knowledge and love and confidence. It's great to hear you focusing in on this.
Thank you.
It's incredibly important. What Dale has just said there. Now is not the time to create any more drama. This is the time for you to understand yourself, strengthen yourself, get in touch with Dell if there's something that you feel, you want to explore with her about how you actually work as a human being, to find out that gorgeous intersection between your psychological and spiritual nature that helps you navigate life with a gentleness for yourself, which eventually becomes a gentleness for all of humanity. But I've got something here that I just wanted to share, Del, and this has been doing the rounds on Facebook, and I don't know whether it's a worldwide thing or whether it's just a thing that's happening in the UK. And this is just a message for women out there, whether you're suffering from domestic abuse, which is physical or is verbal. And it says here, if you're stuck in isolation with someone abusive, message a friend asking them if they're still selling their makeup. I'll know to keep checking in. Ask specifically about my eyeliner and I'll contact the authorities for you. I'll also ask for your address for the package to be delivered to. So it's a beautiful, vague way of saying, I need help. So again, if you're stuck in isolation with someone abusive, message someone and just say, are you still selling your makeup? And then that person will keep checking in with you. If you ask specifically about eyeliner, they will contact the authorities for you, but they'll also ask you for your address for the package to be delivered to, which means help is on its way. Dale, thank you so much for being a guest on the Unashamedly Human podcast. You are a gem. And all of Dale's details will be there for you to get in touch with Dale. And she is actually sort of running a program at the moment, which I think a lot of people would find incredibly useful. And I will put that in the content of the podcast. Lots of love to you, Dale. Stay safe.
And you too. It was wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.